Hey, indie filmmakers, I'm Nick Bodmer.
I'm Griffin Hammond, and today we're talking about the new Mac Studio desktop computer, and we're doing it live here on a platform called StreamYard, taking your input and questions throughout the episode on YouTube and Twitch. And later in the episode, I've been stress testing and crashing my broadcasting software, OBS, and so I'd love your help, Nick, to diagnose what might be going wrong with this.
User error.
Yeah.
No, I don't know that. Probably
Yeah.
not.
But first, let's talk about this Mac Studio.
Mac Studio and the Mac Studio display. Apple is finally making a standalone display, which they haven't done for 10 years or something like that. They got out of the display business. They kind of thought everyone would make high-end monitors, nice monitors to go with Macs, and no one's really done it. And so people have been clamoring for a reasonably priced, reasonably in quotes here, Mac display, because they have the Pro Studio XDR, which is outrageously expensive for professionals. So I'm very excited, if you can't tell. I'm excited about the computer, the Mac Studio. I'm very excited about the Mac Studio display. I went into that... Go ahead.
I did not watch this event, so I'm kind of coming into this like cold. You're
totally
going to explain
blind.
to me.
Well, then I can
I've
just tell
seen
you
the
everything.
pictures. I know what ports this thing has, and I know you told me that it has a new processor. You told me that my MacBook Pro that has the M1 Max chip
Garbage.
is already outdated.
That's right.
I guess
That's right.
before we even get into exactly what is new about this computer, I kind of want to know, like, just right off the bat, is this a computer you're going to get that you think you need?
Yes. Yes, I will be ordering one. I have not ordered one yet. We're in the middle of planning a move and doing some things, so there's some moving pieces, although now that I've waited, lead times are into June already. So apparently
Yeah, that's what's funny. Is like technically this comes out tomorrow, but that's like a meaningless date because they've already announced it. They're already taking pre-orders, and the shipping dates are already a month out.
well beyond that, yeah. So I should probably get my order in, and maybe we'll talk about that later. But this event is coming up. Everybody's kind of expecting some new Macs. Really, what the hope was the new 27-inch iMac getting upgraded to the Apple Silicon technology that's powering the MacBook that you got. You've got a MacBook Pro with an M1 Max, really high performance chip. Right now I have a MacBook Air with just the M1. So they've got the M1, which runs the low end stuff. Then they came out with the M1 Pro and M1 Max, which they put in the laptops. And now they've announced the M1 Ultra.
And what does that even mean?
Okay, so the M1 Max is a 10-core CPU, 32-core GPU chip, right? Very beefy. You got basically the beefiest one you could, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. They have now taken two of those and fused them together. So it's literally double the performance of your current setup.
Okay. Is
So
it
the
more
M1
cores
Ultra-
or?
Double the cores, double the GPU cores, double the memory bandwidth, double the ProRes encode decode units, double everything.
I'm looking at their website right now. It says outrageous performance.
It is outrageous. Yeah, I mean, it's really. The embargo just dropped today, and I have not read a ton of reviews yet because I haven't had time, but I'm going to. But the expectation is basically double the performance of what you have today. And the M1 Max is already like an insanely performant chip, like way more performant than a lot of the Intel stuff. So pretty excited about that.
And this is it's like the form factor kind of like a Mac Mini, except it's like taller. It's still like a very compact computer, right?
Exactly. So first they announced the chip, the M1 Ultra, and everybody's like, holy cow, this is amazing. It's huge. And then they announced, and we're thinking, okay, this is what's going in that new iMac Pro that I want. Or maybe are they going to announce the Mac Pro today? Those are kind of the two big systems left that have not transitioned to Apple Silicon yet. And instead, we get this Mac Studio, which is kind of their mid-level professional desktop, right? They actually came out and said during the thing, the Mac Pro is still coming. We're not talking about that today. That's coming later, right? So there is even going to be something beyond this, which is kind of crazy because this thing's so performant.
Yeah, because this price point is still like very accessible. This is like $2,000.
Starts at $2,000, and that's with the M1 Max. So you can basically spec this studio with the M1 Max or the M1 Ultra. and starts at 32 gigs of RAM. You can do up to 128 gigs of RAM with the Ultra. So you get some choices there.
Yeah. I just want to jump in real quick, interrupt what we're talking about for a second, and just say that the Gunner Storm is here on YouTube, says he's ready for this show. And Rhett Thompson is here, who says, damn, how is YouTube so much better at live streaming than Twitch? Which usually we get like the reverse feedback that Twitch is like faster, and maybe the quality is better on YouTube. We should be streaming in 1080, but I'm kind of curious like what StreamYard, the service I'm using, is doing before it sends it to those places.
Yeah, so tell us what I'd love to know better there, Rhett.
Yeah, like what are you seeing that you like, Rhett? Because that's helpful feedback for us. Sorry, Nick.
No, please, I mean, this is important stuff. But anyway, so I went into this event. I've been waiting for an updated big iMac with the M1 Max or Pro, or some higher end than what you can get on the smaller 24-inch iMac, which is just the M1, like what I've got in my MacBook Air. So that's what I went into. I've been saving my pennies, because that was going to be the computer I upgraded to, because that was kind of just the only way to get like a really good screen and all this stuff you wanted. But this is actually better. Like, I was super excited. I would much rather have a standalone display that I can keep over. I have a tendency to upgrade, right? Like, throwing out such a nice monitor every time seemed like kind of a waste, but it just seemed like that was the only way to get a good 5K display that kind of integrated nicely with the Mac. But now we've got the Studio Display, which looks really nice, and the Mac Studio to go with it. So
now I guess that's an important point on pricing, is that $2,000 gets you a machine with no screen. I guess you could plug in anything, though. You could plug in a LG
Mac
monitor.
Mini, and honestly, what most people are probably going to use the display for is with their laptop, right? I mean, Apple sells way more laptops than anything else, and you may even enjoy with your new MacBook Pro, get rid of that iMac Pro you're using and just have a nice Mac Studio display. You come in, you plug one cable in, it starts charging your laptop, and all your peripherals are hooked up, and it could be a really nice setup. So actually, part of me is thinking,
can it do that just through one USB-C or something?
It's Thunderbolt, one Thunderbolt 4 cable.
Okay, so is it the form factor of USB-C? It's just one of those little ports?
Yeah, exactly.
But you're saying plug in one of those ports into your laptop from your Studio Display into your laptop, and it'll charge it. It'll
charge it, and then it has 3 USB-C ports on the back of the monitor that you can use for peripherals.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Now, that's not a ton, right? You'd either probably have to hook like a hub up to it or something. I'm guessing you plug more than 3 things in today, knowing how much stuff you have. But yeah, there's a way to make it a one cable setup. You sit down, plug one cable in, and boom, you're up and running. So that's a cool idea, and I have thought, would I rather have a MacBook Pro instead of a Studio? Because I'm not going to get the Ultra chip. It's doubles the price, so you start at $4,000 instead of $2,000. And the M1 Max, even though I gave you a hard time about it being out of date, is way more power than honestly I really need. So,
and how much is the Studio Display?
The Studio Display is, I believe, starts at $1,599. And then they have a couple options. So you can spend another, I think, $300 and get what they call a nano texture display, which is kind of like their anti-glare. They like do some sort of nano etching. And you can spend, I think, another $400 to get it with a height adjustable stand. Which is a little painful because I think I'm going to want a height adjustable stand, and that's a kind of a ripoff. But what are you going to do?
Well, it makes sense that you're weighing the Mac Studio versus the MacBook Pro, because I mean, I spent $3,800 on a MacBook Pro, and it sounds like for a similar price point, you could have this much larger screen. Interesting possibilities. You can't take it on the road with you. Well, I mean, you could take the computer on the road with you.
Yeah.
But yeah, completely different setups, but similar price points. So I guess I'm curious for people who are watching, like, is anyone else getting this computer? I mean, it sounds like you're probably going to get this, at least the monitor.
Yeah. I've got a quote I'm looking at. So I've got like an Apple Business rep, and they give you like a tiny discount through Apple Business. So I'm thinking, I'm trying to decide what specs I want. Do I want a spring for the height adjustable stand? Then I got the lead times to worry about. But we can, I mean, if we want, if you've got that website, we could pull up. I can show you kind of how I'd spec out a machine for me.
Yeah, let's do it, because I want to know like
how painful it's going to be.
What you would get. So yeah, walk me. Let's order now. Even though we're not really
let's look at this thing. I mean, it's not the most attractive computer in the world. Am I correct?
Well, that's
Like,
not
what are
the
your
point,
thoughts
right?
when you first see it?
I don't know. I think this is actually beautiful. This little, this kind of form factor. And when I was choosing a thumbnail for this image, I thought I want to show the back of this much more than I want to show the front. It looks like on the front you have an SD card slot and a couple of those Thunderbolt 4 ports. But the back is where you have even more Thunderbolt 4 ports, Ethernet power, two
Look at
USB
that.
A's.
USB-A ports, an HDMI port, 10 gig Ethernet. Like, Apple has finally, I think, realized, like, hey, professionals need ports. Like, we have a lot of stuff to plug it in. You can't give me 2 USB-C ports and that's it. So I'm very pleased with the I/O. And they put ports on the front. Do you know how long it's been since there's been a Mac that had ports on the front? You know, that would, in the past, was far too ugly. But it's like, no, people use this for work. Let's make their life easier. And just to point out, so on the front, there are 2 USB-C ports. If you have the M1 Max chip, those are just USB-C. And USB-C is like 10 gigabits per second. If you have the Ultra, those become Thunderbolt 4 ports, which are 40 gigabit per second. So Thunderbolt 4 is, and on the back is 4 Thunderbolt 4 ports, no matter what, for everybody. But on the front, they're just USB-C with the Max, and they're Thunderbolt 4 with the Ultra. But an SD card slot right there, like, I won't need a dongle. It blows my mind. I'm so happy.
Yeah. We should catch up on these comments because a lot of people are weighing in on what they would do here. So Garrett McClendon says that nano matte screen is probably great for studios that have a lot of direct sunlight coming in. I have a lot of sunlight coming into this room. Blend that film.
Do you have? Let me ask you that. Do you have problems with glare since you kind of have a window behind the screen?
I don't. My window's over there. It's fine.
So we'll talk about this later, maybe if there's time. I'm designing a new office, right? We just bought a new house. We're moving. I'm getting my office ready, and it's looking like the layout of my office is going to put a window directly behind my Mac. So I'm wondering if I need to spring for that or not. I hope not, but we'll see.
Let's see. Blend That Film says, as Mac users, do you feel the price is right from your perspective? And like I said, if it's similar to the MacBook Pro, which I know I'm going to spend a lot of money on Macs, but that price point sounds appropriate to me.
Well, and I can tell you the price point feels better now that Apple Silicon is so much faster than anything else you can get Intel-wise. You're paying a premium for Apple. There's no doubt about it, but I find it to be worth it. Yeah.
Well, and Owen likes that you can take a MacBook with you, and I think like I'm going to stick with a MacBook Pro. I'm on the road all the time. I do have an iMac Pro that belongs to my job sitting here in front of me, but to upgrade personally, I would probably, the MacBook Pro is what I need.
Yeah, I think most people are going to be just like you, MacBook Pro, and the portability is just killer. This is nice, though. They are really building more of a niche product, right? And they call it the Apple Studio because it's designed to go sit in your studio, right? And be that crazy high performance. So if you need that Ultra, like MKBHD is talking about how excited he is for this, because, this will do 18 streams of 8K 422 at once. 18.
Well, that's what... So one thing I always wonder about, they always talk about when they come out with these computers, like this computer, they said it could drive 4 displays. I think like those big studio, it can drive 4 of those studio displays and
4
a 4K
6K displays and a 4K TV at the same time.
Out of the HDMI. Like, I guess, like, what would you be using? When would you be using 4 screens? I guess you could.
I'm sure because these will get used by people doing high-end, 3D modeling and graphics and design, and maybe there are some of them out there that really need to see a lot of stuff at once. Yeah, that seems like a little bit of overkill, but there is somebody out there who's going, thank God I needed that, right? They're
and later in the episode, we'll talk about this like crashing problem I was having, and one of the things I was doing is I was driving to displays, and I'm just wondering, like, is that a very processor intensive thing or GPU intensive thing to run? Like, they're probably bigger than, they're 4K TVs, so they're probably 4K or 6K displays or something. I don't know what they are.
Yeah, that pushing pixels always is difficult, and it seems like the Intel PCs have more trouble than the Apple Silicon because Apple has built in a lot of that hardware encode decode. Not that Intel doesn't have that; some of them do as well. But
so let's have you price one out. But first, I want to just give a shout out to Alex Vey, who looks like tipped us on YouTube. Thank you very much. Says, finally, I got to see the show live, and for once, I'm not out on an ENG assignment. Thank you.
I didn't know you could tip. That's cool.
Yeah. I don't get tipped much on, well, I haven't done a lot of live streaming, so thank you so much.
All right, let's price one out, shall we?
Yeah.
Order now.
So you said you're not going to get the M1 Ultra because it's too expensive, and you just don't need
the
20
M1 Max
cores?
is way overkill for what I need. Like, honestly, I could probably stick with my MacBook Air and be okay. Like, buy the studio display, and I'm thinking about that. Maybe just buy the display first and see how my life is. But you know me, I'm going to buy this computer, so I better just pull the trigger. But yeah, let's pick the one on the left. 10-core CPU, 24-core GPU, 16-core neural engine. There it is. Looks like a Mac Mini from the top.
Oh, yeah, it looks like they really diminish the size of it when they look at it from the top.
So if we scroll down here, we got some CPU options, right? You can see to go to the Ultra adds $1,400. Then the difference between the two Ultra options there are just how many GPU cores. So this is binning, right? So each M1 Max little chip has 32 GPU cores. And some of them come out not working without all the cores working. So they bin it and they say, okay, well now we'll offer one with 24 cores, which actually has all 32 cores if like you looked at it with a microscope, but just some of them are turned off because some of them didn't work. I would probably drop the $200 to get the 32 core GPU because it's $200. It's practically free in Apple terms. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and Mark Cordero was wondering 48 or 64 graphic cores. I guess that's probably on the Ultra one.
Yeah, they're saying the 64-core one, in some hand selected by Apple benchmarks, is outperforming an RTX 3090, which is like NVIDIA's highest end graphics card. Now, you don't have the same software. It's not like you're going to be gaming on this thing. But if you need GPU power, go 64 cores. But you better know what is going to use all those cores. That's going to be like 3D rendering, Blender, or that kind of thing, right? And now we get to the tricky thing. 32 gigs of memory or 64. So let's scroll down. And you'll notice when you have the Max CPU selected, which is the lower end one, those are your only two options, 32 or 64. If you want 128, you have to go with the Ultra. Right. For me, I want this thing to last for a long time. You cannot replace the memory in the future, right? This is called unified memory. It's literally like next to the die for the CPU and the GPU. So I'm going 64, right? If we're gonna feel the pain once, what do they say? Buy once, cry once. That's the strategy here.
Now, is this? I mean, for a long time, Macs have been pretty inaccessible when it comes to like installing your own RAM. Is this not a machine where you can open it up?
It is not a machine where you can open it up, and even if you could, the memory architecture is such that upgrading the RAM is not possible. So that's why 32.
Could you not even pay a third party to do it?
No.
You think? Wow.
No. They're literally on the CPU. This is a system on a chip, and the RAM is part of the CPU package.
Interesting.
Which is what gives it like insane performance. So it's a trade-off, right? People are frustrated they can't upgrade anymore. But before it was just they soldered it onto the motherboard, and that was frustrating. But it was the same kind of RAM as is, user interchangeable in other computers. This architecture, you couldn't change it if you wanted to, and there's tons of benefits to that, mostly around performance and the fact that the CPU and the GPU share the same pool of memory. So that means when data has to move between the CPU and the GPU, it happens incredibly fast, which is cool. So it is a trade-off.
Speaking of speed, we got a comment from DVZN Media wondering, like, what does this mean in terms of real life time savings, like when you're rendering videos?
That's a good question. I'm going to be looking to MKBHD's review because he will put it through its paces with high-end, high-quality video footage. So as a videographer, if you want to know how much like render time is this going to save you, and that's where you're going to notice this is in render time, he's going to tell us that. But my gut feeling, I mean, if you go with an Ultra, it's going to be nearly twice as fast as what you do today, Griffin, on your Macs. And you've done some testing, I assume. How much do you notice a difference between your MacBook Pro with the M1 Max versus your Intel iMac Pro?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I was going to say, I bet that's where people will see the biggest differences when they're, if I were to jump right now from a MacBook Pro to Apple's latest computer that, I bought this just a few months ago, I wouldn't expect a huge jump in performance. But if you're coming from the Intel machines, I would think it'd be significant.
I mean, can you quantify it? Like, do you think it renders twice as fast, or is that too much, overstating it?
I'm trying to remember the tests that I've done.
Didn't you just you were telling me about some warp stabilizer, or the Resolve version of warp stabilizer you were doing. Did you do that on both or no?
Well,
Or
I mean, it was kind of a
comparing-
weird, it was like a not apples to apples comparison. I was doing Premiere Warp Stabilizer on the iMac Pro, and I was doing DaVinci Resolve Stabilizer on the Mac, on the MacBook Pro. And I mean, DaVinci is just already a lot more efficient when it comes to stabilizer. This is something that one of my friends taught me. They're like, oh, if you need to stabilize footage, go over to Resolve and do it because it's way faster. And it was like 6 seconds on the MacBook Pro, and it was like 6 minutes on the iMac Pro. But I think that probably had more to do with the software than the machines.
Yeah. Well, we should do that test. But yeah, if you're coming from an Intel system, expect a dramatic improvement in render times. If you're trying to play back multiple streams of 8K, expect that to be cut down. If you're on an M1 Pro or Max already, like I'm basically going to spec this out with the same CPU you have in your MacBook Pro, Griffin, and I would expect our performance to be darn near identical, even though this is a desktop. So, yeah, that's kind of where it comes down.
I want to point out real quickly that Mark Cordero gave us a tip on
Thanks.
YouTube. Thank you so much, Mark.
And Mark says he's going to be ordering one in the weeks to come, so... You, like me, will be waiting, though, my friend, if you haven't ordered yet. It's looking like June.
So your price, Nick, is now up to $2,600. I'm curious real quick. It's grayed out, like you said. You can only get the 128 RAM on the other one. It says $800 more, but I'm wondering, like, is that...
That's $800 on top of the $1,200 to go to the M1 Ultra. So
so now we're up to $4,800 if I try to add. So yeah,
which would be awesome, but it's just so overkill for what I do. In fact, this whole system is overkill for what I do, but that's okay. I'm an enthusiast and foolish. So,
and
what do you think about SSD? So this is where I've had the most trouble deciding what to do.
Well, I think I had 1 terabyte on my last MacBook Pro, and actually I probably have 1 terabyte on this iMac Pro in front of me. Let me check. But I have 2 terabytes now on my new MacBook Pro, and I think that's the appropriate size for me. Yeah, I have 1 terabyte in front of me on the iMac Pro.
So you are kind of exactly where I'm at headspace-wise. I currently have a 1 terabyte, and actually I just opened it up, and I do have 690 gigs free. So maybe I was thinking I should go 2 terabyte, but maybe that's telling me I'd be okay with the 1 terabyte. Although what I really do like to do is I would love to keep my entire photo library on my system, and right now I can't do that. I use Apple's iCloud photo library, and right now it just pulls down what I need, and everything else is in the cloud. I'd feel much better if that photo library was local. And it's again one of those things.
I don't need 2 terabytes most of the time, but like recently, it's been a thing where like for my day job, I'll go on a shoot, record like 300 gigs worth of raw footage, throw that onto my computer. Then next week I go to another shoot, and I'm backing this up as I go. But now I have 600 gigs of stuff for my my full-time job, and then I'm doing a freelance gig where I have another 200 gigs. And it's like I don't want to take that off the machine because I'm editing it on the machine. I'm kind of waiting till I finish the project. And so like pretty quick, I'm over a terabyte just from like stuff that I'm not ready to move off the machine.
Yep.
I could like. It just depends on the nature of the work you're doing. 1 terabyte would be plenty for a lot of people.
So yeah, I'm torn between 1 and 2. It's another one of those, I'm buying this computer, I want it to last for a long, long, long time. I can't upgrade the internal storage later. Although this is a desktop, right? I'm not bringing it with me, which means I have my NAS, where I can copy files and archive things off to. I can always throw an external SSD in. So right now I've got it spec'd out at 2 terabytes. I'm thinking maybe what might be interesting here is when we get down to the end here, let's take note of the price, and then I think take it down to 1 terabyte, take it down to 32 gigs, and take it down to the base processor GPU cores and see how much money that would save me. Because any individual upgrade, you're like, oh, it's only $400. But by the time we add all these up, it's like an extra $1,000 that maybe I don't need to be spending. Random Film
DVZN...
Production says get 2 terabyte worth it. I think you're probably right. Random Film Production.
And DVZN Media wants a reminder on what Mac are you using now?
Okay, so currently I have the M1 MacBook Air. So as soon as they announced those, I was running a Mac Mini with an Intel Core i5, and I was like, these are going to be worth very little very soon. So I wanted to trade it in as fast as humanly possible. So I kind of just got an inexpensive M1 Mac to hold me over, and boy, do I love this thing. It really is. It's rare for me to run into times when I'm bogging it down, although it does happen. So I've got 16 gigs of RAM and the 1 terabyte SSD in that. So I will probably trade this bad boy in and get the studio. It's kind of the game plan right now. Having 10 gigabit Ethernet isn't a NAS a good solution, says Alex. Yes, totally agree.
Like instead of getting huge SSDs,
a huge
like
SSD,
having a NAS. Yeah, and you and I both have a nice big NAS to offload footage too, and I do that. But I'm just like so paranoid about, especially when it's like the work I do for my any of the work I do. It's like I don't want to be the one that was responsible for messing it up. So part of me is like, I'm going to keep it on my MacBook Pro hard drive. I'm going to keep it on the NAS, and it's in Google Drive. And I'm just going to leave them all in place until this project's done. 'Cause, I mean, some of these projects are like, the turnaround time is 3 weeks or something. Like, if I just wait another week, I can delete it when it's published.
Yep. And I don't have 10 gig switching yet, so that would be something I'd have to invest in as well to increase the speed. Although I wonder, even my NAS is just spinning disks. I wonder if 10 gig would even make a difference in terms of transfer speeds. The hard drives might be maxing out as it is.
Right,
and I think that does
Final
it.
Cut.
I already have Final Cut.
Logic,
I don't use Logic. So we're at $3,200 without the display.
And what you said the display is like $1,500?
Well, just hit continue and let's add it to the cart here.
Oh yeah, it'll come up next.
Oh, I think it'll probably offer to sell you one. Yeah, sure. There you go.
Standard or nano texture?
So it's $300 to go nano textured. I think what I'm going to do is go standard, but if glare is an issue where I end up setting it up, maybe I'll end up having to swap it. But I'm hoping it won't be.
Yeah.
And here is where they kill you with the stands. So let's scroll down.
Does it even come with a stand?
It does. Unlike the Pro Display XDR, which is $5,000 display that has no stand, and it's $1,000 for the stand. This includes a tilt adjustable stand for the same price. How phenomenal!
Oh, I see. So this first one, the one all the way on the left,
yes,
is the one you get for free.
That's what you get for free. Now,
And
let me ask you, what I've read is this display, because of the lack of the bezel underneath, actually sits lower than the iMac Pro does. So it's basically the same display you're staring at right now on your iMac Pro. Do you have to raise your iMac Pro up? Is it at a comfortable height? Would you prefer it to be a little taller? What are your thoughts there?
I already raised my iMac Pro like 3 or 4 inches with a platform, and then ever since I started streaming, I'm lifting it even higher because I want my eye line to be here and not down here.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually have it like on a little box. I need to get it nicer. It's just sitting on a cardboard box right now to get up to this level. So I mean, I have this thing. It's probably 6 or 7 inches off the desk right now, so it's pretty high up.
So I think, and that's kind of what I was thinking, especially because this display has a camera built into it. And I was really excited about this camera. It's a 12 megapixel camera, the same one they just put in the new iPad Air front-facing camera. And it's got an A13 chip display to handle like all the fancy image processing. But the reviews are coming out and saying the camera is actually not very good.
Oh,
which is really disappointing because I kind of was expecting at this price point for it to have like a really nice webcam. And I was thinking for like my work meetings and things like that, I wouldn't need to use the DSLR. I could get away with just, the built-in. But apparently it's not wowing people. It sounds like
although
it's
even if it had
serviceable.
even if it had like a really nice camera, I mean, unless they put like a giant sensor in it or something, like it's still going to be like a tiny webcam sensor. So I would think that you're going to find yourself still using your Sony camera because it's going to give you a look that you just can't get with a webcam.
You're probably right. But that was the other reason I was thinking I want the height adjustability, because I'd want that camera eye line up higher, so I wasn't looking down. So anyway, in the end, I think I will spring for the height adjustable stand, even though that $400 is just ridiculous. I think that, I know.
Well, should I add it on now, though?
Apple being,
you think you need
click it now. Click it now. Show me the pain.
It's we're up to $5,200.
Oh my goodness gracious!
I do want
We're
to
at
say hi
5200.
to Eric Fakardzada, who just joined us and is always shows up to our videos and our streams, and says in the next couple of years, if I need a new computer upgrade, this will probably be my choice, or whatever future version of this.
Having a
So yeah, I was thinking
small
this
audio
all seemed pretty good
problem.
when it was like this. It starts at $2,000, but now that you're up to 5,200,
Can you hear me okay?
yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I've got fairly massive distortion.
What changed?
I'm just going to disconnect my headset real quick and reconnect. Give me a
Okay,
moment.
I'm gonna go to a 2-shot here. So while Nick figures this out, I'm using a piece of software, or it's like a cloud service called StreamYard, which does the multi-streaming that I'm doing right now. We're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. I've used Restream for that in the past, but mostly I like StreamYard. I've been playing around with it at work for the ability to bring in a guest very easily and to share a screen very easily. It's kind of a simple interface for this. Can you hear me, Nick?
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you great now. Can you
Yeah.
hear me?
Yeah. You were getting like an
Okay.
AirPod problem or something?
Yeah, AirPods were unhappy, so I think we're okay now.
Yeah.
Very strange. It was super garbled. Okay. Well, that's where we're at. The only thing I'll ask you, Griffin, is just let's go back and take it down to basically the base model studio.
Yeah.
So where were we at? 5,200, 5,300, something like that?
Yeah. Let me
52.
let's go into here.
Yeah, 5198. We'll call that 52.
Can I go back?
Maybe hit the back button in your browser, see what happens.
But then we're not really. We'll just have to remember 5,200 because it's
Yeah.
taking off the display now.
That's fine.
Yeah. And so, should we drop the SSD at all?
SSD to 1, memory to 32, and the base CPU.
All right. So now you're down from 52 to 48 by doing
Okay.
that. Are we dropping the memory?
Yep, drop that to 32.
So now you're down to 4,400, right?
Okay, yeah.
And then would you change the?
Yeah, let's just take it all the way. So we're down to 42. So it's $1,000 swing.
Yes. Which it doesn't seem like so much when I guess you
When you
realize
do
like
it,
a lot
when
of
you
that.
do it piecemeal, that's how they get you.
A lot of that price point is
I
the
think
display.
for me, this base setup is still probably overkill, right? I worry a little bit about the RAM for the longevity of the machine as well as the storage. But storage, I think, really can be addressed through externals or the NAS or something like that.
Well, yeah, if you have that many USB 4 ports or Thunderbolt 4 ports, you could have all sorts of hard drives hooked up to this
and
thing.
the fact that I'm only using about 300 gigs right now, which is kind of shocking. The RAM, if the machine needs more RAM, I guess that just means I have to buy a new one, and I get to keep my fancy display with its height adjustable stand. So I think maybe that's the way to go. I don't know. I would be interested to know what the audience thinks if I'm going to regret 32 gigs of RAM and the lack of GPU cores on the base model, or if it's already so much more overkill than what I use that it would be fine. But that's kind of how I'm thinking.
Pretty much, do you want Nick to spend 4,200 or 5,200?
Yeah, that's right. Spend my money for me. Chris says the internal storage is going to be way faster than any external SSD, and that's 100% correct.
Yeah.
100% correct. But, 1 terabyte is still probably plenty for whatever current working project I have, and anything else is more like archive. Like like I said, I'd love to have all my photos on there, but I don't really need to. So I think I can make it work. 2 terabytes would make me happier, but 1 terabyte is probably plenty.
So I want to tell you about a problem that I had at work, and I can't really wrap my brain around it. I kind of wonder with your expertise if you understand like what may have been causing my crashing issue. And I guess like, would a new Mac Studio fix the problem? So one of the reasons I've been playing around with StreamYard is because I think our last stream that you and I did, to bring you in, I just did Zoom and I just screen captured it into OBS, the software that I use for broadcasting. At work, I was doing something similar, but I was layering a lot of stuff on top. I was asking the machine to do a lot of things. Like I said, I had 2 external displays hooked up to this machine because I was trying to like show like my host that was on camera, like what's happening on
Which
the
machine
stream.
is it, by the way?
It's an iMac Pro. It's probably
Okay.
very similar to the one that I have in front of me. Let me pull up the stats on this one in case I need them. So I was running the 2 displays. I was running OBS. I had Zoom going. I was capturing these people into the stream. I had audio hijack going because I was doing some processing to the audio and handling all the mics. I had a bunch of loopback virtual devices going. I was like, I had to send like, this audio needs to go to the people on Zoom, and this audio needs to go to the headset of the host, and this audio needs to go to I had like 8 audio devices,
Okay.
Virtual devices. And I'm trying to think, I may have been like also doing another browser source or another screen capture. I think I was bringing some other stuff.
So you
into
were
OBS.
streaming and recording, and you were recording multiple things, or just kind of recording the final output feed?
I think I was just recording the final. So like OBS was doing all of the things it could be doing. It was
Yeah.
streaming 1080, had to encode that on the fly, recording that 1080 file, and also acting as a virtual camera to send its signal into Zoom.
Got it.
So essentially, like the Zoom people were seeing the broadcast in Zoom. I was screen capturing them into OBS so that they were on the stream. And OBS told me it was never using more than 20% of the CPU. I think when I was stress testing it, I could get it as high as like 27.
Okay.
But the problem was, as we were going, I think even a few minutes into testing before we even went live, just the whole thing froze up. This wasn't like OBS froze up and I could like force quit. This was like the whole machine just locked up and I had to restart.
Yeah, that's
Like the mouse was still moving, but nothing was happening on the machine. Nothing was clickable. Firefox wasn't clickable. Nothing was. And this continued to happen. Like I think we crashed like 5 times during this stream, and I just had to keep restarting the iMac. And so I guess I just don't even know what to make of that.
How much memory on the Mac, do you know? If it's
Let's see,
similar to yours, how much do you have?
Mine has 32 gigs.
I mean, that's where my brain goes right away, right? Is it sounds like maybe you were running out of memory, it started swapping, and then just caused something to crash. It'd be interesting if you ran Activity Monitor next time and just looked at that memory pressure graph and just see if you're starting to get memory pressure.
Yeah.
Which
So my
I'm
mistake
guessing
was
you
only
were.
looking at processor consumption, and that was fine. But you think maybe the pressure on the RAM.
But the other thing is, it seems like that virtual camera thing in OBS is a little either resource intensive or buggy. Or I've played with that a little bit, and it seemed to really bog things down on a standard machine. So I wonder if it's that. It'd be interesting to take the virtual camera piece out of it and see what happened. But if it's a bug in OBS, whatever Mac you're running on, it's not going to make a difference. But if it's a processing power issue, a new M1 Mac would certainly help because it seems to handle the video tasks far easier. But then that tells you probably want more than 32 gigs of RAM.
Yeah.
Potentially, right? So probably rerun the test, take a look at memory pressure, which I'm looking at my memory pressure, and I have a ton. I have an app that's eating like half my RAM that I'm not using, so that's not good. But that's neither here nor there. So yeah, that would be the one thing I'd check is Activity Monitor. Check the memory pressure.
And I was getting some feedback from people. I mean, some people were saying like that OBS on Mac can be especially crashy. But
yeah,
one of the reasons I'm using StreamYard, and it's funny, Eric jokes. Well, I guess they're a sponsor for someone else. They're not our sponsor.
Maybe they should.
But I ended up my second test. Luckily, this was not like a real stream. This was just like a test stream. And we did another test last week, and I just tried to diversify machines. I ended up saying like, okay, this computer, the iMac, is only going to do a virtual camera. There's no more streaming. There's no more Zoom capturing. It's not even going to handle audio. This machine is just going to pipe the cameras into StreamYard. StreamYard is now doing it's handling the group talking like you and me.
Yeah.
You can do all these different layouts and stuff. So it's going to handle the layout and the streaming and the encoding.
Please note I'm packing, and you can see my boxes now. Thanks, Griffin.
And then I had another
My room's
machine
clean
doing
again.
all the audio. And part of the reason for that was I thought if OBS crashes again, I want the stream to still be live and we can still hear the host, even if I have to like restart the computer.
Mm-hmm.
Which actually came in handy because at one point someone accidentally unplugged the cameras and the lights. The lights and the cameras went out for a second. And fortunately, you could still hear the host because the audio wasn't going through the cameras.
Oops.
But pretty much by like using two machines to accomplish the same stuff and then having StreamYard do a lot of the work, I felt much more confident that nothing was going to happen.
Awesome.
And Eric Ficarzo wants to know, what is the experience of StreamYard like so far compared to OBS? I have a feeling, and I'd love everyone's feedback in the comments, I have a feeling it probably doesn't look as good. I bet it's like doing more aggressive compression, and I don't know. I don't have as many options. And I think one of the challenges with StreamYard, unlike OBS, is like very limited layout options. Like I can turn on and off some graphics. You know, I can show this graphic on screen that takes up the whole screen. I can cut between a few different modes. But these are kind of like, they're kind of trapped in these sizes. So I have to kind of get creative with how can I build overlays that live on top of this. But I don't have nearly as much control as OBS. But
just from my perspective, like seeing your video stream live, because I can see you, I'm in the StreamYard website. Like it looks really good to me. Like it's way better than a Zoom meeting for sure, image quality wise, between you and me. I don't know what the end users are seeing. I assume it's similar.
And Owen Townsend does say OBS runs much better on a PC. I mean, I've heard
I think
that.
You're totally right, Owen. I think you're totally right. That's what I was kind of trying to say that before, is that OBS on Mac seems a little sketch sometimes.
Yeah. And Eric says it does look a little bit more compressed, but it looks great. And one thing I like about this system is, I mean, one of the reasons I really wanted to use Zoom, you know, I think some people had recommended a few other like video conferencing services. There's a website called Video Ninja, which is great because it doesn't require a login. You just like, it's browser based. You just get a feed that you can pull into OBS. I liked using Zoom because I knew that people were comfortable with it. They knew how to use it. But this is even better because it's just a link I sent to Nick. He doesn't even have to have a login. And I mean, all you have to do is give browser permissions for camera and microphone, and it just works.
I had to use Chrome. I couldn't use Safari. That was it. That was the only downside.
Yeah. Apparently, you can't use Safari. You can use other browsers, but they recommend Chrome. So that's what we're using right now.
That's why I have Chrome, for the few things that require it.
And I'm sure I could just do like an OBS extension or a Twitch extension to bring up comments, but I like that this has a built-in comment overlay. So for doing some simple, doing a podcast, if you have a podcast like ours, two people that you just want to put on YouTube or Twitch live, this is a very just out of the box, easy solution. I guess we could give a shout out to our actual sponsor. StreamYard is not our sponsor.
Let's do it.
Let me drop our graphic and pull up Jambox here.
Let's pull it up.
I want to play a song that I actually used on a real project, a client project. Let's see if it'll start playing. This is called Elegance at a Glance by Move Diz, which is not like the most exciting track, although I'll show you how I jump around tracks when I'm looking for tracks for projects. I'll have to listen to this for like a minute before it builds. So usually right after I click on a track, I'll just click right to the big part.
It's nice that the waveform's right there, so you can find it.
But yeah, I like this track because it fits very well into like the kind of corporate documentary stuff that I do. I wanted to play something today that's not like the most, earth-shattering track, but like a real thing that I use. These are the kinds of tracks I find myself often using for freelance projects, and there's plenty of stuff like this in Jambox. And Nick, how is it that you like to browse for music?
I'm a playlist guy, right? Like I'm like kind of lazy and also have a short attention span, so I like to just jump to these playlists and be like, all right, what am I looking for? I like there's a Jambox
Upbeat,
Selects.
good vibes. Oh yeah, let's go right to Jambox Selects.
That's what I do, and I'm like, all right, what is the best stuff? And I listen to like 5, and then by then I found one I like. I'm good to go.
Yeah.
They make it super simple.
It's a lot of times what I do that I think is like a funny way to find music is a lot of times I'll just like search the word of like the project. Like when I did the Handcut documentary about ice, I think I probably searched like ice into a music library, and it's like that doesn't always get you what you want, but it gets you like thinking. And then a lot of times I'll be like, oh, this is not what I want. I want like something with piano, and it'll help me like start to narrow down a focus.
So for me, I was always, using like the free music sites before, right? And the problem with those is, well, it's great that people put that stuff out there for free and you can use it without having to pay. Like, you have to listen to 100 things, and 95% of them are like really bad.
Yeah.
Like I would never put this in a project, even if the tone is what I'm looking for. So it's nice to have a service where you just know like everything is super high quality and super good. And so it's fantastic.
Well, yeah, and that's what they're proud of on this site is that on Jambox, a lot of the content is exclusive to Jambox. So they have a lot of stuff you just can't find anywhere else. And they were generous enough to give us a promo code for our audience. So if you are interested in checking out jambox.io, I encourage you to go anytime you want and just browse and see if there's even music there you want. And if you do want to subscribe, you can use the promo code HEY15 to get 15% off any subscription. And they have a lot of different ones.
Let me ask you, that track that you picked for that, did that one have like stems like some of them do?
That one actually didn't. Most of the ones I've downloaded do have a bunch of breakdowns. That one in particular didn't.
How would you use that? So is that something where you can just like you loop the intro beat a little bit to fit the exact length of your project? How would you work that into your workflow?
Well, that song, it's probably 3 minutes long, and the piece I was making was only 2 minutes, and actually I only used that song for like the second half of the piece when it like builds. So I think I went to like the bigger part of the song almost instantly.
Yeah.
I think I probably started it a minute in. And then one of my tricks when a track doesn't have stems or like different versions to work with, if I need to like change the emotional value of a song, a lot of times what I'll do is like add some sort of effect, like a telephone effect or something that like changes the frequency output of the song. Like we can make it more muffled, or we can make it sound like it's in like a next door room. A lot of times that's what I'll do is like when I need the song to suddenly like shift, I'll like just kind of muffle it, make it sound different. And then you're taking the exact same song. You could repeat a section if you want, but just change how it sounds.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Jambox.
Eric Fergutsida says that, yeah, the track that I picked does sound like something I would have picked for Handcut. So we should talk about your moving. You have like what, a month or less than a month?
Yeah, about a month. So yeah, we sold our house. We bought a house. There's like a 30-day period where we're staying in our old house, and the people we're buying from are staying in our new house, and then we'll begin the moving in process. So I'm kind of excited. I'm gonna have a little bit bigger office. Right now I'm in a bedroom that we're using as an office, and this will be like an actual office like on the first floor.
Nice.
And it just gives me the opportunity to kind of rethink my setup, right? And maybe it's like the very first room when you walk in the house. So like it kind of needs to, like right now, if you go to my wide shot, like my office is very utilitarian, right? It's like I have a shelf with some books and a desk I built myself, and it's just functional, right? Like I wasn't trying to design it to be like a nice room. And I kind of would like this one to be a little bit more designed, a little bit more of an actual room, like people could walk in. Like your room behind you looks really nice, right? You got some furniture pieces and an art on the wall and a little plant, it looks really nice. And so that's kind of what I'm going for. But
you want to know something funny about the shot right now?
Yeah.
That's not real sunlight hitting the cabinet.
Get out of town. You're using a light to make it look like that? You son of a bee. It looked super real. It's so funny. Is it you're just barn dooring it to give it that nice little slanted look?
Yeah, I knew that shooting this late in the day. I love this window over here, and I actually get a lot of beams that look really interesting in the morning. But this is
Yeah.
the late afternoon. The sun is now like over on this side of my house, and so I wanted to kind of recreate that idea.
You have too much gear at your disposal. It makes me mad. Anyhow, so my concern though is the layouts I'm thinking about don't necessarily like right now. My desk is up against a wall, so I have the entire room behind me to give me some depth and a little bit of interest in the background. And I would like to face the doors. Like I'm always on video calls for work, and like the kids come in, and like my coworkers see that someone has come into my office before I do, right?
Right.
And so I'm trying to figure out. So have you heard of these online interior design services?
No.
So there's a bunch of them now. I was reading about them online. So I've decided to try one. It's cheap. It was like on sale. It was like $120. And you like give them your room layout and do like a style quiz, which for me is like, I don't really care about the style. I just want it to look nice. But, and then a real interior designer, like they like 3D design your room and you give it. So I was like, I need a desk. I want to hang a TV and I play video games on it. So I want to be able to like sit in a nice chair and play video games and have my desk, and I do video production, so I would like some interest and depth behind me, and also I have this racing simulator that's ginormous that has to cut. Like they're probably like, who is this person?
Can the
Anyway,
racing
so-
simulator not go somewhere else? It has to be hooked up to your nice computer.
Well, it could, but I want it by me. We are going to have a loft. I thought about putting it in the loft, and that may happen. But actually, I think the layout we've come up with might actually work with
Yeah.
the racing sim. Anyway, TBD. So that's where I'm at. I put in the show doc. This is like the just like a quick sketch of what it might look like, just in terms of layout. It doesn't have everything. The racing simulator's not in there yet. But I think that would be nice and give me a little bit of depth and interest behind. I was thinking of who's your friend, our friend of the show from Illinois. Anyway, I remember a video they
I'm from
did.
Illinois.
Yeah, about how you can shoot into a corner when you don't have that depth you want, and sometimes the corner provides a little bit more depth or interest than you would just shooting flat.
Are you talking about Adam Ron?
That's it, Adam.
Yeah.
Our Sony shooting friend. And so I thought of that. And so we kind of came up with this idea of putting the desk at an angle so I could kind of shoot into the corner a little bit and then putting some interesting stuff behind there. So that's what we're playing around with. But I'd love comments from our live viewers and from our non-live viewers. What do you think about when designing a space that needs to kind of be dual purpose, but you want to be able to shoot video? The other thing I'm thinking about is like my light right now is a big light panel with a huge umbrella. And I'm wondering, could I get away with maybe getting one of those much smaller light panels that you see like streamers and stuff using, as opposed to this massive thing? I don't know.
Yeah.
So those are the things I'm thinking about, trying to figure out how do I make this a nice space and functional for all the many purposes I have. Do you have any suggestions off the bat, Griffin?
I mean, this space behind me is not perfect because, it's kind of weird that I'm like a little bit underground, and I definitely we made sacrifices for making it a livable space rather than a like video forward space. I have to have a light stand up all the time, whereas like it would be nice to like have something hang from the ceiling, but it wouldn't be very livable. It wouldn't look very normal to see that.
Yeah. Elgato Keylight says Eric that he likes slim and not bulky. That's kind of what I'm looking for. So I'm gonna have to look at all those kinds of things, I think. Because I mean, for this podcast, I don't need it to be like insane, right? I don't need to fake sunlight through the window like a crazy person. I don't think. And Gunner Storm
Hank
says I
O'Matic
should
said
get an
sunlight conspiracy.
electronic slider. That's what you have, right? I think we saw that on your video where you interviewed Griffin. Am I remembering that right? Yeah, that was nice.
Yeah, you're right.
So,
He has the Gunner Storm has an electronic slider for his podcast, which looks great for the wide shot.
His studio looks so good. I'm so
it does
jealous
look
of
great. For our setup, I don't think I would want Nick's shot moving around.
Griffin's like, do not put it on a slider. Anywho, so yeah, those are the things I'm thinking about. I want to be able to play video games and do my work and shoot a video podcast and do simulated racing, all in a 13 by 13 room.
Yeah, just
That's
20
much to
different
ask.
things. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're doing that with every room in the house now, trying to figure out how to lay out the new house. So we're having fun.
I am jealous of people who have like a dedicated podcast space because I don't really want to have to do that, but it would be nice to not have to like tear down lights and set up lights all the time.
Yes.
But you're saying that if we shoot our next podcast a month from now, it'll have to be in a different place.
Yeah, we might be moving in, like literally it might be moving day in like a month. So I won't be set up. So we should probably get another one in the hopper before then.
Yeah. So we'll either do
maybe
one while
one more in
you're
this
surrounded by
space.
boxes.
Yeah.
You'll either be surrounded by boxes in your old house or surrounded by boxes in your new house.
Eric said, the Droy Media? Yes, the Droy Media. That's who.
Yeah, referring to our friend Adam. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll have to find that video for the show notes because I remember that video always stuck in my head about shooting into the corner.
Yeah, I almost remember it as just like an Instagram post. I thought it was
Maybe that's what
maybe
it
I
was.
just saw a photo. Yeah, I remember him like shooting in a tiny. It might have been like an ISU, that's like a university.
Office or something.
Yeah, or I might just be projecting that onto that because I remember like I've done some shoots in tiny university offices and hard to get depth in there.
Too bad he's not here as a live listener. He could plug his own stuff right now, but that's okay.
Yaz7 has a great idea. Why don't you just take some photos of your nice background and use them as a green screen shot?
Perfect. Exactly right. What would you call that? A plate? Something
Yeah.
about a plate?
Yeah, plate. In fact, just like Zoom, I think StreamYard here has a virtual background thing you could do. Let me try this.
Yeah, let's do
Or
it.
wait, where do I even do it? In my settings, virtual background.
Settings.
It says it uses more computer resources. It says I can put a someone else's house behind me. Let's try it. Oh, now I'm just in someone else's house that's not out of focus at all. Nick's got a brick background.
Yeah. And look, I'm like lagging now. Let's see what's it doing to my. Oh yeah, like all my CPU cores are pegged now, so that's why I need the M1 Studio to handle.
Oh, it also
the
has the blur
virtual
effect
background.
where you can just blur your real background. Yeah.
I have coworkers who do that. I think it looks so bad on like Zoom. You know? Oh, it like.
Yeah, can
gets
you
into
not
your
like change
ears
the
and-
level of zoom? I mean, the level of blur?
Like, look at what's happening over here. This is not. Oh, look how laggy it is. Is it laggy for you?
No,
Am I
it's
lagging, I
okay.
should say.
I noticed in the settings it also has a checkbox for I have a green screen, which is interesting because I was kind of wondering, we hung up this painting behind me, and part of me wonders, like, especially for live streaming, wouldn't it be cool to just make like a green screen fabric that I could just like clip onto that painting, and then like every time I stream, I could change what the painting was. Like today, it could be a shot of the Mac Studio or something.
Yeah, that would be good.
But I wonder, like, you know, just software like this, if I click that green screen, will it really limit it to just that area? It probably still won't do it very well.
Yeah. Eric corrects me. A clean plate. That is what I was looking for. Not just a plate.
Yeah.
A dinner plate. Thank you.
I think I've referred to it as like a back plate, but Eric probably knows better than I do. He's a more experienced graphic effects artist, motion effects, motion graphics. I'm just mixing all of the lingo.
Clean plate effects. Graphics. Okay. Well, should I buy a Mac Studio? What do you think?
It sounds like you're going to, or at the very least, you're going to get the studio display.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. It's going to take a long time to get them, but yeah, I think I'm gonna. I've been, I was ready to drop like $5,000 on an iMac Pro, and I think this honestly is going to end up being better than an iMac Pro. So I'm pretty excited.
Can you just add $5,000 to your new mortgage?
Yeah.
Pay for this Mac for 30 years.
Perhaps. Does the display have any interest to you? Like, could you get
I
rid
would
of
have
your
said no.
iMac Pro and kept you just done your your MacBook and the display?
I would have said no, but when you started explaining to me that it essentially acts as a dock for a MacBook Pro, that's pretty cool. That you could have all your peripherals plugged in and it could charge the computer, and that seems interesting to me.
Yeah, worth checking into.
If I didn't already have like my NAS sitting there in my networking cabinet, I could, you could plug it right into the display.
Yep. All right, my friend. I think we've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah. And now, as we say goodbye, I'll get to test one final thing in StreamYard if I can play a video successfully. That is our outro video.
Fantastic. Want to thank the live listeners for the excellent chat.
Yeah, this was fun. And it's always good when we don't know what we're talking about, that people can chime in and help us.
Yeah, then we don't have to sound like idiots later. We can get corrected on the spot.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us. This was our first standalone live podcast. We kind of did it last month as part of as part of another live stream. But this will be the first time I think I just click end broadcast and then just leave it on YouTube and don't even edit the podcast. This is just
that's
done.
how you're going to do it.
Yeah, I'll still need you to send me. I may still take your video just to have it, but I definitely need your audio because I'm going to edit the audio version for podcasting.
Got it. Well, that's nice. Though. That's going to streamline the old workflow.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Maybe it won't work for every episode, but one like this where we're just looking at the internet, looking at Mac Studio, worked.
Love it. Griffin, we'll talk to you later.
Yeah. See ya.
Bye.
Sync test before the broadcast. Delay is on. Clap. Thanks for participating in this pre-broadcast sync test.